Welcome to a new episode of Cheaters Always Cheat. Like, subscribe, and share to stay connected.
I'm 33, a guy, and my wife is 28. We've been married for 6 years. People usually talk about having good and bad times in a marriage, but I never thought we had any bad times. She was always on top of things, waking up on time, doing her tasks, cooking, going to work, and all that. She'd also give me advice. I relied on her a lot. I didn't finish my education properly, and I'm in a decent-paying job that helps me get by without debt, though the pay isn't amazing. On the other hand, she makes 10 times more money than me working in an IT company. Some backstory. Before we met, I had a car business, but I lost everything. My home, cars, and even my girlfriend, because of former friends who betrayed me and ran off with my money. But that's a whole different tale. Following that, I left my home and found myself in a new state, feeling pretty hopeless about life. That's when a buddy of mine introduced me to poker. I got the hang of the game, although I did lose a lot in the first 3 months. Yet, with time, I got really skilled and started raking in some good money. Things were looking up. I still proudly claim that I've got no vices, no drinking, no smoking. Life was on the upswing. I managed to put the betrayal behind me, thinking that those who wronged me would get what they deserve, letting time heal me. Every Sunday, I made it a point to attend a specific church. Then, out of the blue, this gorgeous gal comes up to me and asks where I'm from, noticing that I don't speak the local lingo. I was taken aback. First, I'm not one to easily strike up conversations with locals. I'm more of an introvert. Second, she's stunning, and I've never crossed paths with her before, but somehow she's familiar with me. Anyhow, I told her I'm from another state and shared some general info, nothing personal. She mentioned she'd been watching me for a while and was truly impressed by my focus during prayers and at Mass. Back then, my only source of hope was in God. That's how I held on. So during that period, I gave myself up to God. Seems like she took notice of me, considering she was part of the choir team and I always found myself up front. After church every Sunday, we started chatting. Life felt carefree, no major worries. My poker game was going strong. 6 Sundays of talking, and she invited me over to her place for lunch, even asked for my number. I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. I was an outsider, and she was way out of my league, pretty much perfect in every way. I showed up at her house, and the lunch was fantastic. Her family, especially her dad, turned out to be wonderful folks, honest and simple. Her dad inquired about my reasons for being there, so I gave him a brief rundown of my story. They got a bit uneasy because all I did was poker, not exactly a career path or something promising, but I was upfront and told them that at least I had moved beyond my pain, just going with the flow of life. After the meal, she suggested we take a ride on my bike somewhere. I was taken aback that her parents approved, given our traditional background. Even though the state was full of foreigners, the dating scene was still pretty conservative due to our upbringing. We spent a year and a half cruising around on that bike. After that stretch, she started delving into some personal matters. See, I hadn't tied the knot at that point, and being a loner, her friendship meant a lot to me. So I opened up completely to her. I had this feeling that she was just as friendly with me as she was with everyone else, always offering help. In the 6 times I'd spent with her, she seemed to know everyone in our circle and was there to assist in both religious and friendship matters. After chatting for nearly 2 hours, it was getting close to 6 o'clock in the evening. She asked about my future plans and if I had any intention of getting married someday. I responded with a no because I was already pushing 27 and had lost faith in relationships. But she reassured me, saying it wasn't a big deal, and urged me to live a life with purpose and ambitions. We went back and forth in a debate. I thought that kind of life wasn't for me, but she was adamant that she was right. I won't bore you with all the romantic details. But as we kept talking, we started developing feelings for each other. After dating for 8 months, during which time we hadn't had sex, hugged more than twice, or even kissed, we decided to tie the knot. Nothing major. Like I mentioned, we both come from traditional backgrounds. The wedding went off well. Both families were happy. My mom was especially delighted since she thought I'd never settle down. My father passed away a few years ago. The first night was a mix of shyness and excitement. It went well, no complaints. I had experienced previous sexual relationships, but what truly surprised me was that she was still a virgin, even at the age of 23. I asked her how and why she managed to stay a virgin until 23, and she said she was waiting for the right partner. Those words from her felt like I was on top of the world. The honeymoon phase was fantastic. We were intimate at least twice a day. Although I wanted a bit more, I never pushed her or made her feel obligated. Even though I knew a lot about sex, I didn't want to impose my desires on her or pressure her in any way. In my eyes, she was an absolute angel, and I was determined not to upset her with even a single word or action. Life was going well. I took a break from playing poker for a bit. I had a decent amount of money, and being a newlywed, things were good. That's when the trouble began, about 3 months into our marriage. I found out about a poker tournament with a substantial prize pool, and I really wanted to participate. So I told her about my plans to play in the tournament. That's when the first bombshell hit me. She wanted me to quit playing poker and get any job, just not poker. I was somewhat puzzled and asked for clarification. She explained that she didn't think poker was a legitimate way to earn money. In her eyes, it was just gambling, and the money wasn't truly earned through hard work. I agreed with her on some points and tried to explain my perspective on the game as well. However, she managed to get her way by giving me an ultimatum: poker or her. Obviously, I chose her, even though poker wasn't my ultimate dream. It was more like a passion, a form of relief. After that, I snagged a job at a trading company, and I've been at it ever since. It's not some big fancy corporation, but given I'm not a local guy and I'm not highly educated, this was the best I could get. Meanwhile, my wife has been climbing the ladder and excelling in her career. Yet she's never made me feel inferior or flaunted her success over me. We don't have kids, even though we're having regular intimate moments. I've checked and confirmed that I'm capable of having children, but I'm hesitant to bring up the topic. A few months ago, she mentioned she'd rather die than live childless, so I've steered clear of that conversation. I've never attended any of her company events. She even once hinted that I wouldn't enjoy those gatherings given our current situation. I've been wanting to watch The Witcher for a while, but never found the time. Last Sunday, though, I finally had some free time and was eager to catch the show. I asked if she wanted to watch too, but she just wanted to relax. I said all right and fired up Netflix. The show was gripping, but there were plenty of explicit scenes. I tried my best to skip or fast forward through them, but she was lounging on the couch and quipped that she understood why I was doing it. I've been dying to watch this series. I asked her what she meant by that. She replied, "You already know," and then walked off to the bedroom. That left me puzzled, so I paused the show and went after her to talk. She was in tears when I entered the room. I apologized and explained that I didn't realize the series had so many explicit scenes, promising I wouldn't watch it again. But little did I know what was about to unfold. She said she had something to confess, and that she was sorry. I was a bit taken aback and fearful because the woman I knew had never done anything wrong or foolish. I reassured her that it was okay and that she could tell me anything. Little did I expect to hear that she was having an affair with her boss for the past few months. My heart sank as I listened. She had realized that I was incredibly faithful and devoted to her, doing everything in my power for her. Though the first time it happened was unintentional, she continued because he was skilled at manipulating her with sweet talk and guilt, begging for her affection. As she spoke, my heart felt like it had been hit with a heavy blow. I nearly blacked out, and my legs wouldn't move for a good 2 minutes, she later explained. She shared that seeing women portrayed lustfully on TV made her realize the magnitude of her betrayal. She couldn't stand the idea of her husband looking at a nude actress on screen, yet she somehow justified her actions of being intimate with her boss. I wasn't even feeling particularly lustful. The explicit scenes surprised me and caught me off guard, but they didn't deeply affect me. I was completely unprepared for the shock of her confession, so I got up, grabbed my phone and wallet, and started walking. Amid her loud cries, she pleaded for me to sit down and talk, assuring that anything could be forgiven if we talked it out. That's when I snapped. I questioned her. "You expect forgiveness for your affair?" The moment she said that, the last shred of respect I had left for her vanished. I walked out of the house. She followed me, and as she approached, I shouted at her and picked up my pace. I didn't want our neighbors to witness this scene. After a bit, she stopped chasing me. Perhaps she went back to fetch a car. I'm not sure. Regardless, I just kept walking and walking for nearly 3 hours. Eventually, I realized I was emotionally shattered and needed to take some action. Otherwise, I might as well have been walking to my own demise. I found a nearby ticket booking office, got myself a ticket, and made my way back to my home state. When I arrived at my house, my mom was understandably baffled and asked why I was there. Abruptly, I told her that I was done with this life. I informed her I needed some rest and that we'd talk in the morning. She seemed perplexed but agreed. Then my brother inquired about my sudden appearance and asked where my wife was. The house belongs to him as he's the one who bought it. Before all of this, we had been renting that house for quite a while. This is why I always felt like it was our home. Even though he asked me politely, I had to realize that it wasn't actually my home. I let him know that I'd be leaving in a few hours. I spoke to my mom, informing her that we're getting a divorce and asking her not to pry. Then I left. She was puzzled, wanting a proper explanation, but all I could repeat was that I was finished with this life. I moved out of the house and found a hotel to stay in, reaching out to lawyers for legal advice. A friend of mine, who happens to be a lawyer, referred me to a divorce attorney who advised me to be patient since the process takes time, considering the other party and all. Now, as for my ex-wife, my former angel, I don't use Facebook or any social media, and I've blocked her number on my phone. I have no clue how many times she's tried to reach me. As she's unaware, I'm still in my home state, likely because she hasn't yet called my mom. However, she has sent me text messages. In those texts, she's poured her heart out, expressing how devastated she is. She's asking me to return home so we can have an honest conversation. She's been talking about how she's accepted my flaws and sees only the good in me, yet she feels I'm not reciprocating. She even reminded me of the vow we made to be together forever. The message was quite lengthy. I'm not quite sure what to make of it all. In her recent messages, she's been telling me that she initially thought I was a good partner. But now she recognizes that I'm her soulmate, and she can't imagine life without me. She's tormented by thoughts of betrayal and guilt, mentioning how these feelings are affecting me. She even admitted to attempting to harm herself, but she stopped when she thought about me, and so on. I decided not to read the rest of her messages. If I did, I might have been swayed to reach out to her or learn her side of the story. Thus, I deleted all the messages without reading them because keeping them could weaken my resolve. And it's true. She possesses many positive qualities, but her act of cheating has overshadowed them all. I'm sharing my thoughts here because I'm an introvert and don't have close friends. I've avoided forming friendships due to past traumas involving betrayal. I just needed to let out my emotions and hear some kind words from others after going through a divorce. Thank you. I apologize if my English and grammar are not perfect. I believe there's a significant breakdown in communication between you and your ex. It seems both sides might have contributed to the issues. Cheating, naturally, is a grave mistake, and she's to blame for her actions. It's disappointing that she made that choice. My perception is that she might have had concerns about your gambling, and you might not recognize the gravity of the situation. However, that doesn't justify her infidelity. She should have been more direct in communicating her feelings to you. If she was indeed feeling that way, your reaction upon finding out was understandable. Sometimes, you just need to distance yourself and take a walk to clear your head. This situation really highlights how crucial communication is. Without it, you can never truly grasp where your spouse stands. Both individuals might end up in completely different places, or worse, in entirely different narratives. Update. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all those who supported me and offered kind words. I'm sorry for not responding sooner. I was going through a difficult time and was unsure of what to do. I'm still uncertain about the path ahead, but I felt compelled to share here. My wife informed her workplace's HR department about the situation and resigned from her job. She also spoke to her parents and tried to contact me. I wasn't aware of any of this until just the day before yesterday. During this time, I maintained no contact and sought solace in a yoga ashram to clear my mind and heart. Upon returning home to my mom, she informed me that my wife had been in the hospital for 3 days due to an ending life attempt involving an overdose of pills. My mom had tried to reach me, but I had turned off my phone, so I was unaware. Feeling conflicted, I didn't know what steps to take. I knew I didn't want her to die, or at the very least, I wanted confirmation whether this was genuine or not. So I immediately took the next available flight, and with her father's assistance, arrived at the hospital. There she was, still not fully conscious, in a critical condition. The doctors kept assuring us they were doing their utmost. Her parents let me know that she had written a letter addressed to me and handed it over. The letter spanned 4 pages, but essentially, it conveyed her deep remorse for the affair. She admitted her mistake and acknowledged that she can't continue living with me due to her guilt. Yet she also can't bear to be without me. She pondered her options but couldn't reach a conclusion, given that our marriage seemed irreparably broken. Therefore, she concluded the letter by expressing her intention to end her own life. She emphasized that this decision was intentional and she was solely responsible for it. No one else played a role. I was at a loss about what to do. She was still unconscious at that point. Her parents were simply by her side, not taking any further action. Eventually, after a long wait, she regained consciousness during the night. However, we were advised not to disturb her, so we patiently waited. There was another couple with us from the beginning. Turns out it was my wife's boss and his wife. The same boss who had been involved in the affair with my wife. After the attempt of ending her life, the police got involved due to her father-in-law's involvement, and both of them were questioned. To be honest, I didn't know how to react. I was filled with anger at the time, but I understood that if I acted on it, I might end up in jail. So, despite the raging anger within me, I remained silent, waiting for the right moment, knowing that my emotions could erupt at any time. Yesterday, the doctor informed us that she's stable, but she needs more time to recover completely. The process will likely take about a month for her to fully bounce back. We brought her to her parents' place yesterday evening, and that's where we are right now. She expressed a desire to see me and have a conversation once she found out I was here. However, I suggested that we talk after we reached her parents' home. I'm uncertain about what lies ahead. We'll keep you updated after we've had our conversation. I tied the knot with my wife after a year of dating. In hindsight, I realize I should have taken more time to date before jumping into marriage. We were married for 3 years. The idea struck me to surprise my wife while she was working, so I brought flowers and her favorite restaurant takeout. This was my first time visiting her at work, so none of her colleagues knew what I looked like, until now. The receptionist, Kelly, was absolutely flabbergasted, nearly rendered speechless. She took so long to respond that I wondered if I had something weird on my face. Eventually, she managed to tell me my wife had already gone out for lunch, but would be back soon. I found a spot in the lobby near the entrance to the building, taking a seat. Kelly began typing away on her phone like a person possessed. I noticed a couple of women sneaking glances around the reception desk, some casually strolling by to take a look at me or starting hushed conversations with Kelly. Perhaps they were a tad envious. After all, I was walking in with flowers and a delicious meal for my wife. I felt like a pretty decent guy until my wife walked in through the entrance, hand in hand with another man. The moment she spotted me, she released his hand and distanced herself. Her expression was a mix of anger and frustration. She approached me swiftly while I stood up slowly, caught off guard. She demanded to know what I was doing there, and I stumbled over my words, acutely aware of the 5 women and 1 man fixated on us, intently observing the unfolding drama. Kelly was the one who broke the ice. She turned to me and asked, "Are you her husband?" I saw my wife's hand move to her mouth. She was grasping the gravity of the situation. "Yes, that's right," I replied. The other guy walked out. Following him, my wife trailed behind. I attempted to go after her, but Kelly and a few other women blocked my path. They shared that my wife had introduced them to the man as her fiancé 8 months ago, leading them to believe he was the one she was engaged to. You can imagine the shockwave that news sent through me. I handed over the lunch and flowers to Kelly, passing along my phone number. Then I stepped outside with the aim of finding my wife, who was busy assuring the man that she would leave me for him, fully committed to their relationship. I interjected, letting them know such a gesture wasn't required. I informed them that I would be filing for divorce and leaving all of her belongings outside for them to collect. My wife completely lost her composure, desperately pleading with me not to put her things outside, emphasizing that they were high-end branded items, and she didn't want them getting dirty or damaged. I stood there speechless, astounded by her insensitivity toward me. I couldn't fathom how I had been so deluded to think everything was fine between us. I hopped in my car and drove off, leaving her in the parking lot with the man. She'd better act quickly to retrieve her stuff, or it might end up ruined. As soon as I reached home, I began tossing her belongings out of the second-story window. I phoned my mom, and she rushed over as fast as she could. She joined me in tossing out stuff, offering words of encouragement that this wasn't an end, but rather a fresh, exciting beginning. She had a real way with words. The following day, my wife showed up at my place with her not-so-secret man in tow. He drove a pickup truck, which made it painfully clear that my wife had an excessive amount of belongings. You could see the anxiety in his eyes. I reckon, until this all unraveled, he had the impression my wife was a simple single gal with a modest load. Well, turns out she's got baggage, my friend. They began loading his truck, but my wife gave up after breaking a nail, leaving him to do the heavy lifting. Meanwhile, my mom and I focused on tidying up the house indoors. I'd already switched the locks, and my wife got mighty peeved when her house key wouldn't work. In some sort of revenge move, she decided to mess up my front porch. Joke was on her, though. My doorbell camera captured her in action, perfectly timed with my filing for divorce. I handed over the footage to the police, and she wound up getting charged with disorderly conduct. It didn't take long for her employer to catch wind of it, and they were seriously disappointed. They promptly let her go, seemingly not wanting someone of her caliber representing their company. Just a week after she got fired, her affair partner called it quits. Took him a bit to realize she wasn't worth holding on to, I suppose. She called me in a crying fit while he was tossing her belongings, claiming she had no place to crash and didn't know what to do. I basically brushed it off, telling her it wasn't my concern and that she should bunk in her car. Man, I felt pretty darn good that her affair didn't gnaw at me too much. I just kept my eyes forward and leaned into the support and assistance I needed to navigate it all. Story 3. My wife, 30 years old, and I, 32 years old, had been married for 4 years. She told me she had to hit the road for a work trip 5 hours away, even requiring an overnight stay. She hadn't done this before, but she had only been at this job for 9 months back then. She told me her bosses were quite impressed with her work, and they picked her to go on the trip. They'd pay her for it, and it was like a nice little getaway. Since I didn't seem too excited, she added that she needed some time alone to do a bit of soul-searching. That comment struck me as odd, so I asked how she thought she could do soul-searching on a 2-day business trip. She just rolled her eyes and said I was being too technical. On the day she left, I found myself pondering how strange it was that she mentioned needing alone time. My wife usually wasn't a fan of being by herself, and the town she was heading to was far away. I talked to a buddy about the situation and he convinced me we should follow her. At first, she hesitated to give me her hotel room number. She came up with some weak excuse, but I assured her it was just for safety reasons. I had zero intention of driving 5 hours just to visit her during a one-night stay. It was quite amusing. My friend was certain we'd catch her in bed with someone, but I had my doubts. I couldn't possibly think that about my wife, right? We got there around 10 p.m., long after she had arrived, worked, and settled in. She texted me a good night, but even that struck me as odd. My wife used to stay up pretty late. We took the elevator up and positioned ourselves by her room's door. Our plan was simple. If someone opened the door, we'd barge in without hesitation. The goal was to prove she was in there with someone before they could shut the door on us. Honestly, I wouldn't have had the guts if not for my buddy. He pushed me to muster up the courage to uncover the truth. Before he knocked, I could swear I heard some moaning, though I tried convincing myself it was from another room. A man opened the door and we stormed in, phones recording. My wife was on the bed, stark naked, struggling to untangle the bedding to cover herself. When that didn't work, she hopped off the bed and crouched down. She let out a scream, saying, "For Christ's sake, I thought you were going to call the hotel room phone, not show up here." I was speechless. I couldn't believe it. My friend, on the other hand, had plenty to say. He had known her through me for the past 4 years, so he took it upon himself to berate her for being a slimy, worthless cheater. He aimed the camera at the guy, and the guy covered his face, grabbed his stuff, and bolted down the hallway. It was like he wasn't supposed to be there and didn't want to risk getting caught. My wife cried and attempted to yell after him, but soon realized it was a futile effort. It dawned on her that he had no intention of staying with her or standing up for her. She hugged her knees, sobbing, and sat naked on the floor in the corner of the hotel room, all of it captured on camera. All that crossed my mind was that she had it coming. While recording, I asked her what on earth she was thinking and who the guy was. She responded that she didn't want to tell me anything and just wanted me to leave. My friend took it upon himself to demand answers on my behalf, stating that it was the least she could do to make up for the pain I was going through. Amid tears, she said she didn't know what we wanted her to say. I told my friend we needed to go, realizing she wouldn't say anything to salvage the situation. As we left, I made it clear that she wasn't welcome back home. In frustration, she let out a piercing scream. The ride back was quite silent. My friend expressed his apologies for what I was enduring, but I assured him that I owed my knowledge of my wife's affair to him. We listened to some powerful music and continued talking. He stuck around at my place for a few weeks as I initiated divorce proceedings and stored all my wife's belongings in the garage. There was a camera in there, so I didn't mind sharing the garage code for her to retrieve her things. One day, she showed up with a small moving truck. She loaded her belongings into the moving truck by herself. Unaware of the camera I had installed, it recorded her taking some of my possessions and placing them in her truck. These items were valuable and she might have intended to sell them. I called her and confronted her about what I had seen, and she pretended to be clueless. I warned her to return the stolen items or face consequences. 3 days later, I returned home and found my belongings on the porch. 4 weeks down the line, I received a call from her at 2 a.m., crying and expressing regret. She confessed to missing me and the life we had built together. Furthermore, she revealed she was pregnant. I knew without a doubt that the child wasn't mine. It had been 2.5 months since we last had intimate relations. She was residing on the floor of her sister's apartment, as her parents refused to let her live with them. I told her that she had caused this situation for both of us, and it was beyond repair. I was not going to support her or the child from the affair. Her only option was to move forward and make better choices from now on. She apologized once more before ending the call. We haven't spoken for quite a while. I believe she's still living with her sister. On my end, I teamed up with my friend to start a small business and hobby that has flourished. It's something I'm passionate about, and it's generating income, so I'm genuinely content. My ex-wife's sister reached out to me, asking for assistance with rent and baby expenses, as she somehow believed it was my responsibility. My ex's burdens had shifted to her. I suppose it's a sign that my ex isn't eager to return to work. I couldn't help but chuckle at the money request. I recognize times might be challenging, but I declined to provide support to that deceitful, unfaithful woman.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the little bell icon for notifications of new stories.